Uh-oh, feedback. Yeah, I love those introductions. How about just sinners saved by grace? Okay, I am L.A. Marzulli. Please state your name and rank. I write books, I make movies, I yak all over the place. This is based on Mysterious Mound Builders, and it's episodic. This whole series is episodic. It's like we've got the first two done. I'm going to show you in a few seconds the trailer for the third episode, which is not out yet. But we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just, there's no end to it. And what's really cool about this, I'm looking for like a unified theory. And what I mean by this, what does UFOs have to do with Bigfoot? What does Bigfoot have to do with megalithic structures? What does megalithic structures have to do with elongated skulls? It's all like this. Once you start going down the rabbit hole, everything dovetails together. So I get back from this morning or the afternoon session. I look at my email, and I have I should have printed it out, but there's no, anyway. And it basically says, I saw Bigfoot and it dematerialized right in front of my eyes. That's the headline. Welcome to my world. It's the real X-Files. The stuff that comes across there, sometimes we look at each other and just go, what are we doing here? But what's really cool is, and I'll do this tomorrow night, so I'm not going to, whoa, easy, big fella. Landmines are everywhere. I won't do it now, but I'm going to save it for tomorrow night. I think you'll be amazed when I ask the audience to raise their hand, and thank you, sir. Raise their hand and tell me, don't do it now. How many of you have seen lights in the sky, orbs, had an encounter? No, don't raise your hand. You're not paying attention over there. Don't yell at the pastor's wife, L.A. Remember that honorarium that you wanted? It just got decreased 50%. Thank you. So, but no, seriously, it's amazing. And I actually recorded all these and put them in the film in their own words. It's alarming. It's upwards sometimes of 30 to 35% of the people sitting right here in your church, in your congregation, have seen a UFO, lights in the sky, orbs, had an encounter with an alien, had sleep paralysis, been abducted, have an implant. It's bizarre. And no one talks about it. The church circle. So there's people out there, and this is why we did it. There's people who are like really hurting. There's people that are burdened down with stuff they've never told anybody. And if that's you, I'm going to make myself available at my table all weekend. You come up and you tell me, I won't laugh. Trust me, I've heard it all and come back smiling. I mean, we had, at Steve Quayle's conference 2 years ago in Branson, I said that. There was a line, remember that? There was a line, it was like an hour and a half long. Yeah, it was crazy. But that's what we do. And we prayed for every single person that came up. And I'm not breaking stuff off, but he is. He's the one that breaks stuff off. And it gets people free. Some people, the husband and wife come up, and the wife starts telling me this, and the husband's going like, they've never heard it, and vice versa. People hold on to this stuff, and it burdens them. It can burden them for a lifetime. So if this is you, this is your weekend to get free, and I mean that. Not from anything I got no magic wand, I got nothing. He's got everything. So let's roll into it. Mysterious Mound Builders, and we're going to talk about episode 1, episode 2. Episode 1 is Mysterious Mound Builders. Episode 2 is Mathematical Mysteries of the Mound Builders. So, let's all make fun of a duck. Mathematical Mysteries of the Mound Builders. So watch this trailer. This is for episode number 3. Ding! Oh, before we get there, LA, you don't know your own PowerPoint. This is embarrassing. Our mission statement is this: to expose the deception of the prince of the power of the air and to herald the return of the King Jesus. We poke the dragon. We poke the bear. We poke the dragon. We do. We poke the dragon. He doesn't like what we do. If you have absolutely nothing else to pray about, please think about praying for us from time to time, because the attack is at times can be overwhelming. I have what I call the oppression attack index from 0 to 10, and today it was about a 3. So it waxes and wanes. Sometimes it can go way up. It can shoot way up, and it's like you just be sitting there, and all of a sudden, boom! Unwanted thought out of nowhere. The most vile things you can possibly imagine. And I have to take authority over it. Nope, we're not going there and just start doing the whole deal, get the shield up and start. But it's real. The enemy hates what we do. We poke the dragon. Do you really think he wants you to understand what his tactics are and what his end game is? Of course not. He wants to keep it as close as possible. He wants to keep the church dumbed down. He wants to keep everybody in this room dumbed down, including myself. You know, when I wrote the Nephilim trilogy, I thought I was done. I wrote Politics, Prophecy, and Supernatural. I thought I was completely done. Okay, I've done everything on the Nephilim now. I don't have to do anything else. It's over. My friend Russ Dizdar called me. I was going to some conference, and it was in Newark, Ohio. And Russ Dizdar gets on the phone and he goes, this was started of the whole thing. He goes, oh, hey, do you know where you're going? I go, Russ, I'm going to Newark, Ohio. And he starts, if you know Russ, he starts giggling. He starts, you know, I affectionately call him Rushy from time to time. I'm one of the few people who can get away with that. So Russ goes, no, do you know where you're going? I go, Russ, I'm going to Newark. What's going on here? He goes, are you by your computer? I go, yeah. And he goes, Google Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley of the Nephilim Chronicles. I go, what? So I Google this thing, and up comes the book by Fritz Zimmerman. And since then, Fritz and I and Peggy, we've gone on numerous adventures together, days on end, filming, exploring. Fritz is in the first 3 films, and he's a regular. The guy's amazing. And he wrote this book, Fallen Angels in the Ohio Valley of the Nephilim Chronicles. And you can pray for Fritz. He's got some things, you know, he loves the Lord, but he's kind of like had some stuff happen in church when he was a little boy. And he's like, you know, damaged that way. But his heart is amazing, and we love him. And whenever we're with him, it's like we cheer him up. But you pray for Fritz. It'd be really great to just have him kind of healed up and stuff. But Fritz writes this book, and I'm in Newark, Ohio. That's how you say it. It's not Newark, Ohio. It's Newark, Ohio, if you're a local. So I'm in Newark, Ohio, and my host, who's lived there 15 years, I go, hey, you know where the Great Circle Mound is? He goes, yeah, I go by it every day to work. I go, really? And he goes, yeah, it's some circle thing. I don't know. And I go, so he drops me off there, and I walk into this thing, and my jaw drops. And I stand there at the entrance with every cell in my body vibrating, tingling, just going, oh my gosh, what is this? Oh my, and I just sat there, dumbfounded, just staring for probably 5 minutes. I would just go like this and look, and then go to the other side and look and just go, you have got to be kidding me. That opened the door. We are on the trail of a Nephilim. That's the title of the overarching series title, is On the Trail of a Nephilim. That's the thing. So you'll see, here's the trailer for episode 3, and I think you'll find it interesting. You got to pay close attention because it moves really quickly. Here we go. Sound man. Oh, I don't have my plug in. Times. Emily, I think that was you, not the sound man. You owe an apology. Gee, Mr. Soundman, I'm really sorry. Please forgive me. Here we go. Soundman. The Genesis 6 narrative states that the Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards. If that's true, can we find evidence that corroborates this? I'm Emily Marzulli. Join me as we go on the trail of the Nephilim. That's Machu Picchu, by the way. That's Miamisburg in Ohio. Oak Mulgee, Octagon Mountain.
and my belt knocks the breath out of me.
More like July. So that's the trailer. And what we found, I mean, I just whet your appetite a little bit. I mean, the guy who talked about the table levitating, that's Pastor, it's Olson, not Olson, but Olson, Pastor Olson. And he pastored a church in Newark, Ohio for years. And when he took the position, when he was candidating for it, they asked him, do you do deliverance? This guy's a Lutheran pastor. He has no idea of any of this stuff, nor is he looking for it. And he starts getting calls once he took the pastorate about all this. And one thing leads to another. And there's a house that's built on a mountain, and he walks in, and the table is levitating by itself. There's one thing he talks about where there was a crawl space, and they would open the door to this crawl space, and sometimes it would just be a normal crawl space. Other times it would be a black hole, a black pit, and they would throw things into it, never hear it hit the bottom. So, I mean, you talk about this stuff at church, and people just go, well, you know, that's so low. People don't really want to hear this stuff because it's dark. But who is the prince of the power of the air, and who runs this planet right now? You tell me. You tell me what we're up against. So we can be ignorant of his devices. We can pretend he doesn't exist. We can, you know, have a big smile on our face all the time and never understand really that we're supposed to engage in this and understand who it is we're fighting, and the fact that, you know, there are. Let me ask you this. In most churches today, Russ, this is from Russ Tisdale, he's always talking about this, there's sometimes less than 30 seconds corporate prayer. Now, I don't know what happens here, and that's not for me to judge or make any recommendations. But I do know this, that if the body of Christ would ever get together, whether it's on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night or whatever it is, and begin to pray collectively, target the abortion clinic in the town, target the psychic in the town, target the crack house in the town, target the drugs coming into the town, target the perversion and the gay agenda in the town, target the blood that was innocent blood that was shed here years ago, reconcile with Native Americans. I mean, there's a gazillion things, there's no stopping it. Think of what power the collective body has together if we would start to do that. Think if it spread from church to church to church, and people were, you know, collectively doing this on an ongoing basis, you know, once a week, because this is the power when the saints come together, and everybody in this room knows how to pray. It doesn't have to be from here or anywhere else. It can be from out there. A different person could take care of it, you know, every day, and the people, or on Sunday morning, and there's 5 or 10 minutes of corporate prayer. Somebody's got a real need, and people pray, because we are under a brass heaven, in my opinion. And I'll talk about that tomorrow night. I kind of leaked it out a little bit. With 1.5 billion abortions globally since Roe v. Wade. You can't even imagine that. And I'm going to show you pictures from a pathologist. She sent them to me. And, you know, you're not supposed to do that. And see, people don't know what an abortion really looks like for the most part, and it's all kept, you know, under wraps, and oh, the woman's right to choose, and yada, yada, yada. When you see these, and if you've got a weak stomach, then don't look at them. But when you see these, the reason why she said this, she became a Christian because of this. She was a Darwinist, a scientist, an atheist. There is no God, yada, yada, yada. And she's a pathologist. She's doing her internship at a hospital. And the head pathologist says, well, next week we're going to do baby puzzles. And she goes, baby puzzles, what's that? And this woman says, well, you'll see next week. So sure enough, the week starts, and they bring down these carts with these little vials like this big. And in the vials are the parts of the babies that were ripped from their mother's womb. And each person has to dump the contents out and then try to put it back together and photograph that. She sent those to me. And I published it on my blog site. Why? Hillary Clinton, I know you're not listening to this, but if you are, and I show that picture tomorrow night, defend that, Hillary. Defend that, you loony idiots in Hollywood. Defend it. Show me. Tell me whether it's a woman's right to do that. Stand up and defend that. And if you can, you're the Nazi. And Mengele would have loved you. Amen? It just drives me bonkers. And the church needs to stand up and push back like crazy. I am so sick, politically incorrect here, I am so sick of being told I'm racist, homophobic, Islamophobic, I'm a misogynist because I'm saying Roe v. Wade's murder. I'm just so sick of it. It's time to stand up and go, you have the problem, not me. You have the problem, not me. Amen. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. The church needs, I'll tell you something, we are at the verge, and this has nothing to do with this is all extra LA, but we are on the verge of losing the country, and I mean that. I mean, the whole idea of the soft coup with Donald Trump, it was a soft coup. The whole Steele dossier is absolutely fabricated. Most of you know that, anybody who watches Hannity. I've known about it for almost 2 years, because we got the information kind of first from other sources before it hit mainstream Fox News, Hannity. But this thing has been going on, and there was a soft coup. I mean, they were trying, and even the night of the election, when you look at CNN and these other, they're already going at it. This was the insurance policy. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is treason. It is treasonous. And unless the American people stand up and demand it, that the investigations go forward and the indictments happen, if they get away with this, all is lost, I'm telling you right now. If they get away with this, kiss the country goodbye. And we're that close to losing it anyway. And I actually wrote a piece on the blog, What If? And basically it was this, what if, we're not going to lay down and take this nonsense anymore? What if we're on the verge of some kind of a civil disobedience / civil war? I'm not advocating that. Deep State, I know you're listening. God bless you. Jesus loves you, and so do I. But I mean, we are on the verge. We are, she liked that one. But I mean, we are on the verge of something. And you can't reconcile it when a comedian takes a bloodied, severed head of our president and holds it up like that. How do you sit down for a discussion? You can't have a discussion when the Speaker of the House is talking about impeachment before she goes in and supposedly sits down with the president on the infrastructure. How's that going to work? Oh, and then he has a temper tantrum? Wouldn't you have a temper tantrum? Wouldn't you go, see ya? How do you sit down when someone like Bette Midler sits there and walks out? Have you seen that? It's on my blog, the picture. I mean, this woman, I don't know where she's at. But why get dressed up with huge Baphomet horns on, okay? Have a skull dangling, a plastic skull necklace. I mean, she looks like Baphomet, if you know who that is. The goat, Satan. That's what she looks like. And behind her, get this, are guys dressed up as brides. Full makeup and the whole thing. And we're supposed to, why is it that this pastor can't go into a first grade classroom and just talk about the Ten Commandments? Oh, we can't have that away. Separation of church and state. Now, we all know that that's what the Constitution says. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say anything about separation of church and state in the Constitution. Number one. Number two, how come he can't go in, but we can have drag queen story hour for first graders? And some guy gets all dressed up as a little princess, and he walks in, and the kids are going like, huh? That's what's going on here. How is that possible? We are so far down the rabbit hole. And the church, for the most part, dithers. We're asleep. We don't stand up. We don't push back. I'm on a list. I was approached by the Deep State in 2016. I was threatened 3 ways. So, I know the way they play the game on some level. But we are on the verge. I'll tell you one thing. If Hillary Clinton had gotten in, and I mean this, that would have been it. The 8 years of Obama with doubling the national debt, gay marriage, open borders, toast. And that's what they counted on. They figured that no one will ever know what we're doing with the Steele dossier. Hillary's the shoe-in. No one's ever going to look at this stuff. It'll all get buried. Can you imagine whitewashing your cell phone, whitewashing, acid washing your hard drive on your computers, smashing hard drives? I mean, can you imagine if I did this? I'd be in the Huskow in 10 minutes. Hillary gets a pass. How does that work? Loretta Lynch on the tarmac. I mean, I could stand here and do a whole PowerPoint on this, and maybe I really should, because I'm not a one-trick pony, because it's all, we're headed towards someplace. And we're seeing dark days, which can only mean when we see these things begin to happen, The wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places, troublesome times, famines and pestilence. Look up. He's coming back. And that's I firmly believe we are in the window of time where we go up, they come down. We go up, they show up. So let's get on with this. Let's get on with the show. Oh, sorry. 2 millennia ago, a culture that is still unknown to us today erected thousands of mounds throughout the Midwestern United States to the Gulf of Mexico. They're called the Hopo, the Adena, or the Mississippian. However, no one knows what these people actually call themselves. In other words, they remain mysterious and unknown to us today. When the first white settlers came in the Great Circle Mound in Ohio, they asked the Native Americans living there, "Who built this?" The natives replied that they didn't know who built them, as these large mounds were there and abandoned when they arrived. The discovery of these mounds created a controversy, as some posited the mounds were built by perhaps an unknown lost tribe of people who migrated from the old world. Others thought they could be one of the lost tribes of Israel. This debate continued until the latter part of the 19th century, when the conclusion was made that Native Americans had built the mounds, but they had simply forgotten they had done so. This is now the accepted paradigm. However, is it the truth of what occurred in the ancient past, or has the information been managed to bolster a particular narrative? Join us as we explore the mysterious mound builders. So I get emails from people, like I said earlier, and this is from this gentleman who said that he was out on Tick Island, and Tick Island, do I have a shot there? No. Tick Island is in Florida, and it was this huge acres, probably like maybe 10, 15, 20 acres, like an island, and huge midden mounds, shell mounds were on this thing, huge, and there were tons of artifacts. And so this man had this is way back in the early 50s, this man had contracted with the state to go in and deconstruct the shell mounds and grind it all up for road base, okay? So he's in there doing this. No one cares about any of the archaeological stuff, but the Bilger family does. And they go out and they start looking for artifacts, and they find artifacts. They find artifacts. And that's the story. He told me his mother filmed a lot of this. He also told me on the record that there was one graveyard that they found where the skeletons had to have been at least 10 feet. And I'm like this. I'm going, oh, please, have it be on film. Wasn't. They did show another grave with the archaeologists with an elongated skull. That was in it, and all the other stuff. But the grave that he talked about was not. And he was bummed, and I was bummed. But sometimes we get so close. So close. Can you imagine if they had the film of that? And so he sent the film out. It was like Super 8 or whatever, and I had it digitized and brought it back and watched it, and then emailed him. But he comes in on the record, and he's getting up there, so he's fragile. We just did an audio, and his audio is heard in the film while we're showing the actual footage of the Super 8, and they're out there and they're digging up arrowheads, but there's this one shot where they actually dig up an elongated skull. And the reason for that is, yes, Native Americans practiced what was called cranial deformation, head binding, cradle headboarding. We understand that. We're not saying that didn't happen, but not everything is cradle headboarded. And when I ask for a skull, you can go get it, just either one at some point, okay? So the Bilger family was out there hunting relics, and this is a skeleton of a giant man over 7 feet found in the Okefenokee Swamp. There are several photos. I discovered a 9-footer out in Catalina, but I'll get to that. So the bottom line is, this is why we're on the trail. Sometimes the trail is like 50 years old, which was the case here. And so Tick Island is no more. It's now like a nature preserve, with all the artifacts that were there, for the most part, long since gone. There was another one we went to, which I won't talk about tonight, but I'll tell you about it anyway. Lake Delavan up in Wisconsin. And in 1911, these brothers called the Phillips brothers, they had this hotel right by the lake. And there were mounds there, and they opened up the mounds, and lo and behold, they found a watertight grave where the skeletons were in a circle with their knees up like this, knees up to the chest. So they were in a sitting position. And they're arguing with the state archaeologists that these are giants, well over 7 to 8 feet, and they don't look like anything normal Homo sapiens look like. And I've actually got photographs of the letters that go back and forth between the state archaeologists who's insisting, well, this must be a bone pile, you don't know what you're looking at, and the guy's going, look, we know what we're looking at, they're not normal, you need to come out here and look at this. So, again, this trail was over 100 years old when I got there. We went out to the hotel, and no one even knew where the mound was that they had excavated. Nobody knew. We went to the town's historian, who photographed everything, and he had 42 boxes of files. I had a team of people, we combed through every single paper that this guy had and found nothing on it. It took us 2 days to do it with a team of 5 people. Sometimes you find stuff, sometimes you don't. But we found out that his wife, for a vengeance, she had some axe to grind, burned all of his photographs. Just burned them all. All the negatives, everything. That's like, thank you, really appreciate that. So who is the prince of the power of the air? That's what he's called. He's our adversary. He is the adversary. Ha-Satan, Satan, the dragon, the prince of the power of the air. And what you'll see, this is in Ohio, near Peebles, Ohio. And the New Agers, for the most part, have looked at the serpent mound, which you see there, and have said, well, this is what their paradigm is. There's the serpent, and it's giving birth to the egg, and the egg denotes wisdom. That's kind of what they say. Now, in 2012, the Mayan elders, this is in the third film, the Mayan elders went to the serpent mound with the 13 crystal skulls, and they performed the ceremony there to open up the gateway. Henry Groover, this is all in the third film, Henry Groover did a prayer walk there, but he wasn't told to go. He had been prayer walking and closing down gates at all these different mounds and places for like 7 weeks. So he sees the sign, he knew about it, he shows up, it's snowing, and he goes to the head of the serpent, which is there, and he performs a ritual. What I mean by that, he prays and begins to repent of the shed blood over the area, and begins to, claim that land for Jesus. And as he walks off the head of a serpent mound, he starts walking back to his van, there's about 4 to 6 inches worth of snow on the ground. And all of a sudden, he's hit with a force in his solar plexus, and down he goes. His knees go up in his chest, and he can't straighten them. And he realizes he's freezing to death. And he calls out to the Lord and says, why? And the Lord said, Henry, I didn't tell you to come in here. Presumption, I didn't tell you to come in here. I'll release you, but don't come back here until I tell you to come back here. And then only do so when you fasted and prayed and you bring a team in. And he learned, and he comes on the record and with an audio, and then our CGI, computer-generated imagery, Wesley San Giorgi does a brilliant job in bringing his story to life. That's in the third film. There's this woman, Dottie, who was in the Newark area, and she knew nothing about the serpent mound at all, nothing about it. And this was like, I think in 85 with the whole convergence thing that was going on. I forget the exact date, but it was like 85, 86, 87, something like that. And the Lord wakes her up and tells her, go to the serpent mound and do what I tell you to do. I want you to pray there. So she goes there. There's like 300 New Age people, all decked out, doing their crazy stuff, incense, patchouli oil, the whole deal, crystals, the whole New Age thing. And she's alone, didn't go with anybody, and she's just standing there waiting for the Lord to give her directions. So they're all the people at this point are milling around this area, the head area. About 300 people are like right in this area. So the leader is back here by the tail, and he says, hey everybody, we're going to start, so come back over here. The whole crowd moves, and like 10 minutes later, they're up in this area. The Lord says, I want you to go up on the head, raise your arms, and and pray what I tell you to pray, which is what she did. And she prayed, and then she just walked off the mound, and that was it. So, the Lord knows about this. When we were there, this is it's a very charged site. The Mayan elders knew what it was. That's why they went there. And when they're chanting, they're doing something like you heard it. They're going, like that. And everybody's doing the same note. That's what opens the gates. That kind of a ceremony opens the gates and allows, plus shed some blood and boom, the gates open and it becomes a charged place. We were there on the spring equinox and there was a coven of witches that were there. They know what it is. See, the church needs to go and take these places back and sanctify them. So, who is the prince or the power of the air? And turn the volume off on this, please. Just turn the volume off. Okay. So this is aerial drone footage of the Serpent Mound. And you can only see it when you're high above in the air. And I'll just give you a taste of what this looks like. Let me just skip up. Wait, it gets better. Give you an idea just how big this thing is. And it undulates. And see these undulations? Oh, it's not showing there, is it? Sorry. Why am I seeing it here and you guys, why is it stopped there? That's so weird. Let me try this again. Okay, you're seeing it. Okay, good. So I'm just going to let it roll so it doesn't do anything weird. So maybe turn the lights off so you guys can see it on the big screen and I can point stuff out. Lights off, there we go. So look at the undulations here. These point directly to equinoxes, solstices. The head here points directly to the summer solstice, sunrise. This is our paradigm, and this came from the work of an amateur archaeologist by the name of Mark, who was spending time out in the Serpent Mound. They were going to do a poetry reading out there, go figure, right? So he's out there, and then he comes to the Nephilim Mounds conference, and Gary Stearman's talking about, it's all about the seed, Genesis 3:15. The seed of the serpent will be at enmity, at war with the seed of the woman. So this is the new paradigm, which really comes from amateur archaeologist Mark, but he let me run with it, and we published it, and I elaborated on it. He just came up with what about this? And I was just blown away. So what this really is, you see the head right there. We believe that the serpent is not in the act of giving birth to the egg. The serpent is in the act of trying to destroy the egg, to swallow the egg. Why? So the one who's coming that will crush his head will never appear. If that's true, look at that. That is, and you can only see this from the air. When you're down there, you can't see it. Who is the prince of the power of the air? Why make something that you can't appreciate unless you're hundreds of feet above, flying a drone, or you are the prince of the power of the air? And it's the line, of course, of the summer solstice. And Native Americans did not build this. Once again, they try to tell us, the famous team archaeologists, we were last there, the signage came up and it said, the Shawnee built this. Chief Joseph Riverwind comes on the record in the films and states unequivocally in writing that Chief Wallace of the Shawnee stated on the record that the Shawnee did not build the Serpent Mound. The Shawnee did not construct the Serpent Mound. It's there in writing. They knew what it was, but in no way did they build it. But the American archaeologists and anthropologists, they don't care anything about I'm a racist, right? Because I'm saying American Indians didn't build it. I'm called a racist because I'm saying they didn't do it. But who's the racist here by insisting that the Shawnee built it when the Shawnee says that we didn't build it? It's an injustice. It's deliberate deception, and that's what it is. So it gives you an idea of what we're looking at with the Serpent Mound. That's actually a better way to look at it over there on the smaller monitors. I just can't point to it. So this thing undulates across, I've been there 3 times, and it's a highly charged area. Highly charged area. And there was an altar there. This is really a good shot of it here. Once the drone swings around, you'll get to see it again. There was what we think was a pillar right in the egg. There was an altar and a pillar there. The pillar has since been pushed down over the cliff, and we actually film where the pillar is. One of the things that we want to do is see if we can take the pillar and take it out. It's got moss all over it. What we think, there may be writing on it somewhere. Maybe writing. No one cares. No one, it's just standing, it's at the bottom of the hill, someone pushed it over. And part of it's buried like this. So it probably weighs a couple of tons. You know, you're looking at getting a crane and yada, 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 or some kind of a tractor back there. And of course, you'd have to clear it all with the Ohio Historical Society, and that's another, you know, because they don't want anybody touching anything. But that's what we're trying to do. So here, you can see, you can turn the lights back on, that the head of a serpent here, what just happened? The head of a serpent swallowing the egg points directly to the solstice, the summer solstice. And you can see the winter solstice and different, it's basically, once again, on an 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. So here it is in plain sight. It's in Ohio, near Peebles, Ohio. It's absolutely in plain sight. There it is. Thousands of people, maybe tens of thousands of people, visit it every single year, and they don't know what they're looking at. There's a 2-story tower, actually closer to 3 stories, that's erected near, I'll show you where it is. The tower is right about in here. So when the tower's here, you're up 3 stories, you can kind of see the head, but not really. You look over with the tail. You can't appreciate it unless you go up. And when you're up a couple hundred feet in the air with the drone, and you look at it, you just go, you've got to be kidding me. Who is the prince of the power of the air? Why would they do that? Why build something when you can't see it? Why build something that you can't appreciate? And when you're there, you're kind of like this. You're going up, yeah, I know it's a serpent, but I'm not seeing it. And you kind of walk along like this, and you get up to the head, and you kind of go, I think that, yeah, there's the egg, and there. I mean, it's not the way it is from the air. You can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at, but not really. When you go up a couple hundred feet, the whole thing, like I showed you in the video, it just pops. Who is the prince of the power of the air? See what we're living under? See what's happened here before? And it's global, folks. That's what people don't get. It's everywhere. It's in the temples in Europe. It's in the menhirs of Portugal, the standing stones of Karnak. It's at Stonehenge, it's in Machu Picchu, it's in Teotihuacan, it's out in California. There are stone circles and stuff up in Canada. It's down in Florida, it's everywhere. It's global. It's in Russia. It's all over the Middle East, for crying out loud. That's Nephilim Central. Part of it's in Australia. The red-haired giants were found in New Zealand. I mean, it's everywhere. And it's all under the radar. And it's all hidden away and obfuscated. And when you go up to an archaeologist and you try to have a conversation, they laugh at you. They laugh at you. Because they know all the answers. Excuse me, sir, have you ever been to Machu Picchu? Well, no, LA, but why? Well, do you really think it's the same builders that build Machu Picchu, like we talked about? Is that really the same people that build this? Or is it Inca slop? Do you see a difference between the stonework? So let me see this. One course of stonework, like we talked about this morning, or this afternoon, is incredibly pristine. And the joints are perfect. And I guess they got lazy after a while, right? They think, I'm not doing this anymore. We'll just throw some slop on it. Or do we have 2 builders? I mean, it's just amazing how anyone can sit there and go, this is all Inca stonework, I like. Oh, really? And yet the Inca, when asked, when the conquistadors were, I'm regurgitating here again, when asked, they said, we didn't do it. It was here when we got here. So that's the Great Serpent Mound. Cahokia, which is right, we talked about this morning, but when you look right here, this plaza, right? Allegedly, there was a house there. And that house, the walls was like, was it 50 feet? What was it? 40 feet high. 1 story. So why do you need a 40-foot high roof? Why did they have to do that? There was the stockade, it's over here. There was a wooden stockade that went all around it. The plaza in front of this thing, and extends this way, 45 acres, is level within 2 inches. How is that possible? There's about between, I would say, 450 and 500 thousand tons of earth to create Cahokia. 500,000 tons of earth. 500,000 tons of earth to create Cahokia. 390,000 tons of earth to create Poverty Point. Over 500,000 tons of earth to create Fort Ancient. 3.5 miles of continuous walls. 10,000 mountains in Ohio alone. So let me get this straight. How many American Indians are over here? How many? So all they're doing all day is building mounds, right? That's what's, well, it's over thousands of years. They just make this stuff up. You don't know. Quit drinking the Kool-Aid and then forcing me to drink the Kool-Aid. The bottom line is you don't know. He's pounding a table. I guess he's getting a little too, I hope he took his heart medicine this morning. Calm down, LA. It's only a presentation. Look, I get passionate because it drives me nuts. These guys hold court and they don't know. They don't know. But they're going to tell us exactly. Look, Cahokia, first of all, 25 years ago, the story was, well, Cahokia took 300 years to build, LA. That's good. 300 years to build. One basket full of dirt at a time. Well, then this guy, an archaeologist, shows up about 10 years ago, and he starts doing soil samples. And he goes, nah, pollen samples, more like 20 years? So now we've got a real problem. We go from 300 years, what they told us, that was the gospel truth. Oh, we're going to change it to 20 years. Why do you guys do that? So now they're trying to tell us that this was built in 20 years. And of course, the whole population, look, hunter-gatherers, right? Even if they're growing some crops, I get that. You've got a population. Let's say you've got 100 people, to just give you an example. So you got 50 guys and 50 gals. Out of the 50 men, because the women are tending the kids, doing the cooking, tanning the hides. That's what they're doing. The men are out hunting. So out of the 50 men, how many of them are young enough to work? Maybe 40. Let's be not conservative. So 40 guys can go out and hunt and whatever. Out of the 40 guys, somebody's got to feed the village, right? There's no ice boxes, there's no freezers like we have today. They got jerky, they got fish and stuff, but the growing season is like this. It's cold in the winter, Cahokia, you know what it's like, so you got to make hay where the sun shines, and there's only so much game and wood and everything else. I mean, just run through that. So let me get this straight. Out of 100 people you've got, 40 of them can work. The other 10 are maybe too little or too old to work. Out of the 40, who's doing the work on the mound, and who's supporting the workers with the beef jerky for lunch? How's it working? You see when you start drilling down into it, and then you go to places like Poverty Point, which we were at, and you'll see this in a second. And I asked the archaeologist, I said, I understand that you believe that Native Americans took primitive hoes and dug in the soil and scooped up the soil with their hands, put it in deer hide baskets or birch bark baskets, one basket full at a time, and made the mound. I go, how many hoe handles or how many hoe heads have you found on the site? He goes, about 25. And then the light bulb goes off in his head and he goes, oops, 390,000 tons of earth, 25 hoe heads? Not going to work, is it? Something else is going on. And they don't know who built it. They don't know what the people were called. They know nothing about it. They only know that's there. And when I show you pictures of it, you'll see why. So we've got a real, I'm sorry, let me get a slurp here. This is when we're up on Cahokia. You can dim the lights.
This is the Josh Sullivan Show on the GCN Radio Network.
Hey everybody, Josh Sullivan from the Josh Sullivan Show here. We got a really special sort of show for you today. I know usually we're on the radio, but today, Ellie Marzulli is actually in our neighborhood. So we thought, how can we not know today? So Ellie, what are we doing here? More importantly, what are you doing?
Well, this is part of my ongoing research in contrast and Abilene. This is Cahokia. It's been on my bucket list of sites to go visit for quite some time, and it's just great to be here. In all of these places that I've ever visited, most of them are right by a waterway. The Mississippi is off on my left here. You can see the archway in the background of St. Louis. We are up on top of what they call Mum's Mound, which of course is completely eroded because they call it Mum's Mound because the Catholic Church is Mum's over here. They don't know who built
this complex. They really have no idea who built it. They call it Hopia because it's like Hopewell, Indiana, in Ohio. Hopewell was a farmer. They don't know what the people who built the mountain in Ohio were really called. They make names up, like Hopewell, like Indiana, like Hopia. They just make these names up. And no one really knows who people were. They don't know how this was constructed. And the reason why I'm here, this all goes back into the mound culture. I believe that there is a hidden history throughout the world, which has been deliberately obfuscated for the people of the world. And part of being on the trail, visiting the site, there's nothing like boots on the ground. When you're here, and the wind in your hair, and Mississippi's off to your left, and you get a feel for the country, and I'm on top, I can see for miles, literally for miles up here. It's absolutely incredible. And of course, it's a very, the complex has many different mounds on it. And it reminds me of other places I've been, like Teotihuacan in Mexico, and then, of course, Corral down in Peru. There's a similarity. Mainstream archaeologists will tell us that this mound was constructed over a period of decades, maybe a couple of hundred years, by Native Americans allegedly, with birthmark baskets, however big they were, and clamshell, and stone hose, and they dug the dirt, and they hauled it. And I asked one of the docents in there, I said, listen, you've got engineering, you've got local techniques, you've got advanced mathematics, and the book is culture, all this rises up out of nowhere. And so in my opinion, this is fallen angel technology, Nephilim architecture.
Especially when you say out of nowhere, I've never been on this sort of adventure before. This is literally out of nowhere. Does anybody who's been to Illinois is notorious for having black?
So, what's interesting about this Nephilim architecture, fallen angels technology, you can turn the lights back on. What I find incredible about this is these sites like Cahokia, like Teotihuacan, like Machu Picchu, wherever you go, Corral, the oldest city in the Americas, is 5,000 years old. It's north of Lima, about 3 hours. And when you go there, the first thing I did, I'm walking in with the docent, I'm looking around going, I said, this looks just like Teotihuacan. And it does. It's got the plaza, it's got the pyramid of the sun and the pyramid of the moon and all that nonsense. That's what they call it. But they're there. Also, my second question, was there evidence of human sacrifice found on the mounds, found in the site at Corral? Yes, there was. He kind of looks around and goes, yes, we found evidence of that. They don't like that. So there's always blood. These sites are highly charged, and there's no pre-existing culture in Corral. There's no pre-existing culture in Cahokia. They're not trying to figure out what this is. It's just there. It just, boom, it appears in full-blown regalia. Done, finished. They're not trying to, well, how does this work? I'm not sure. What are you talking, solar alignments? It's all there. In other words, no one's writing on deerskin. We think we understand that we'll make this thing in an 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. No one's doing that. It's just done. There's no, well, we tried before, but we didn't quite get it right. We got it. It's done perfect. Just like Stonehenge. It seems to be perfect. They call Stonehenge 1, Stonehenge 2. I get that. But the alignments, and I think there's like 28 alignments, are perfect. Same thing in Karnak in France, which we're headed out to Karnak in June. We're going to be filming there. 3,000 menhirs, standing stones. It's the largest field. It just goes on for like miles of standing stones. And there's this one surveyor, Crowhurst, who's written 2 books on it, very, very math-oriented, extremely math-oriented. And he writes all the angles. Well, he's got, GPS surveying equipment out there. Welcome to the modern world, right? And he's lining up solstices and equinox. These things line up with great precision. Well, you go back a couple thousand years, 3,000 years ago, and in the Neolithic, they don't have any of that stuff, so how's it being done? So this stuff rises up globally from seemingly nowhere. So Poverty Point has 390,000 tons of earth. We were there. That's where I asked the docent, the archaeologist, how many hoes have you found? He said about 25, and then he realized, well, that's not going to jibe. 390,000 tons of earth, 25 hoe heads, something's wrong here. And there's something really is wrong. So we drilled into this. And what you'll see, this is all, and I'd love to get you weighing in on this after the fact. Check this out. This is Mound A. This is the biggest mound at Poverty Point. Look at the triangles and what they actually show here. I mean, it is, something else is going on. And it's very, very deliberate. And this is This is a huge distance here. This is, I mean, it's one thing to sit here and draw these nice little pretty triangles on a map like this. It's another thing with the circles and everything else, all the geometric patterns that you see in the landscape, hundreds and hundreds of feet apart, and there's no surveying tools. How the heck are they doing this? And it's not like well, they got it pretty close, it's only off by a couple of feet. It's dead on. It's absolutely dead on. So it gets really weird. Fort Ancient, when I got to Fort Ancient, it was like going into the Great Circle Mountain for the first time. It was early spring. It was on the spring equinox 2 years ago. Spring equinox. We get out of the car and we go to what's called one of the gates, which I think, let me see if I got to find it here first. I think it was, yeah, there it is. It's right here. This is where the road cuts through. In the film, you can see the road cutting through. This is the gates. These two mounds are still here. This is the road, and this is in the woods. And this is 3.5 miles of continuous earthen walls with, by the way, archaeologists will say there's 67 gates. We think there's 66 gates. So, when Peggy took out her iPhone and checked out where we were, it was due east, right? Due east-west? I think it was due east-west, if I'm not mistaken. Absolutely perfect east-west. And then, what was interesting was, she looked at the constellations, and the Hydra, the serpent, was directly over the gate. The serpent on the equinox was directly over that gate. That's deliberate. Who is the prince of the hour of the air? It's always the serpent. And when you talk to archaeologists about this, well, the serpent's indigenous in all cultures, LA. It's a symbol that's easy to draw, and blah, 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 we just have it from, Spain to Mexico, back again. It's like, wait a minute. Why is it always the stinking serpent? It's everywhere. Why Chichen Itza, the serpent, the dragon, Quetzalcoatl, the dragon. You go down to Okmulgee or Alabama, the pottery, the dragon, the serpent, the flying serpent, the wind serpent. China, the dragon. It's everywhere. It's global. Who is the prince of the power of the air, and who is the dragon, for crying out loud? And he wants to be worshipped. And that's what all this is about. The bottom line is they build these sites so that the fallen ones can come down and they are worshipped. Anything different here? Welcome to the book of Revelation, when he sets himself up to be worshipped in the temple of the rebuilt God, a rebuilt temple. That's where it's all headed. But in the meantime, in antiquity, that's what took place. So when we get to Fort Ancient, I can't even believe what I'm looking at. I mean, we get out of the car, which was right around in here someplace. We actually parked the car here. We walked in. I flew the drone from this area out to this mound and then down a little bit. We walked down into here. We never got down to this part. We walked down to this area, just totally blown away. I've never seen anything like it in my life. And it's about 500,000 tons of earth, roughly. 500,000 tons of earth. Do you have any idea of how many basketfuls, 30-pound baskets or 40-pound baskets? It's like in the millions. It would be like, Poverty Point was 28 million buckets, single buckets. And that was 390,000 tons. So, you're looking at just, 40 million buckets? I mean, when was the last time anybody in this room counted to 1 million? Anybody want to try? So we're supposed to believe that 28 million buckets of earth were dug? This is what I mean. You got to get your head around this. 28 million buckets of earth? And that's what we're supposed to believe? So it gets better. Watch. So these are old photos of what the site used to look like at Fort Ancient. The Great Gateway. Gives you an idea of the size of the mound. And see, if I were king of the forest, no, if I were in charge of this site, the first thing I would do would be take all the trees down. First thing I would do, get rid of all the trees, so people could see what it is, because they can't see it. When this thing was built, there were no trees growing on this mound. And what happens is, over a period of time, the trees and the roots begin to move the soil. Here's something to think about. In Cahokia, which is right off St. Louis, in Poverty Point, the second largest mound in the United States, in Fort Ancient, in the North Circle Mound. How was the dirt compacted? Why hasn't it eroded away? How did they compact the dirt? Oh, well, we don't know, LA. Maybe they used big logs and had a bunch of people go tamp. The Adena Mound is like the Adena, they call Adena. We don't know what these people call themselves, but we'll call them Adena because that's accepted in academic circles. So this Adena Mound has really steep sides like this, okay? It's not like this, it's really steep. It's so steep that, could I go down it? Yeah, I could, but I could also fall and break, twist an ankle really easily because it's really steep, okay? And that begs the question, how do they pack the soil? And when they opened up Miamisburg, which is another mound, and I'll show you pictures of that in a little bit, when there was a museum inside the mound, and according to the records, when they began to tunnel in, they were shoring up the dirt, and they realized, get this, the dirt was compacted so tightly and held together so tightly that they didn't need to shore it up. Has anyone run compaction tests on the soil? See, this is why it's multidiscipline. This is why we hire a surveyor to go in and look at the North Circle Mound and tell us what's going on here. How accurate is the moat? 6 inches to a foot, that's really accurate because that can be just slough over the last 2,000 years. So that's Fort Ancient. Watch, this is the party line. Check it out. And this is, you got to watch really carefully. This is the Kool-Aid. Hopewell dwelling.
I'm standing on a National Historic Landmark that's over 2,000 years old. And Jack, you're going to kind of tell me it's a little bit about our Indian.
This is Docent Jack.
Cherokee, you're a little bit Shawnee.
Shawnee tradition, Cherokee heritage.
Yeah. So I'm excited to kind of learn a little bit about my heritage, but I'm in a garden, so what's going on here?
Well, this garden of mixed crops was grown 2,000 and 1,000 years ago by the Hopewell cultural people. And they were very simple, complex horticulturists.
Mm-hmm.
They did not have corn, they did not have beans. They would have grown things that we would consider to be weeds today. Amaranth, goosefoot, knotweed. We do have sunflower and squash and gourds.
Okay.
And we also have native tobacco that's growing. And when all this was built, they used very simple tools. And I can hand this to you.
Yeah.
You have the shoulder blade, the clamshell hoe. Very simple tools. And I can hand this to you.
Yeah.
You have the shoulder blade, the clamshell hoe.
Okay.
Watch your face.
Now what's this used for?
This would be used for gardening. As well.
Watch your face here.
Okay. Now what's this used for?
This would be used for gardening, as well as creating 18,000 feet of earth walls here.
I'm not sturdy enough to do something
They
with.
would have had a little bit more sturdier, but they would have gone through a lot of clamshell.
A lot of clamshells. Watch what he says about the shoulder bone of a deer.
Okay.
And then also we have the deer shoulder blade. The way the deer shoulder blade
Look at her face.
is into the shaft and then wrapped with rawhide of that animal. Again, look how flimsy it is.
Yes.
It would go through a lot of bone tools.
Okay, time out. They would have gone through a lot of bone tools, okay? Now to get the shoulder blade of a deer, you've got to kill the deer, you've got to skin it, you've got to take the meat, that's deer jerky, that's really good. I've got some right here, $9.95, just joking. So you would have to, and then you got to dry the bone out, then you got to make this tool, right? You got to wrap it with the leather, this whole thing. You're not going down to Ace Hardware. Right? And I like the deer scapula hoe, please. Right this way, Mr. Marzulli. That'll be $20.95. That's not happening. So some tool maker is making this thing, right? The hunter's got to get it, got to skin it, got to dry the bone out, take the bone, get the rawhide, wrap the thing, get the pitch. Voila! What is it? A week later, you get the hoe. You know how long before it breaks? It breaks it's flimsy. It breaks very. So this is the Kool-Aid. This is the Kool-Aid. Keep watching.
Shoulder blades, deer and elk, split up antler.
What is here?
This is called the Three Sisters.
Okay. So this is Docent Jack again, speaking to another group. And he's trying to tell us just how this was done, and when you deconstruct the mounds, this is what you get.
So now, Fort Ancient, it's a 2,000-year-old prehistoric earthwork site. We're on a short list for World Heritage Recognition, which means that we are going to be considered for a global destination for world travelers. But Fort Ancient itself is the largest and best preserved hilltop enclosure in the United States, 245 feet above the river, and we are enclosed by over 18,000 feet of earth walls. To give you an understanding, 1, 2, 3 earth walls. Those are the 3 earth walls right there. So we're at the very tip of the iceberg. So Fort Ancient, again, hilltop enclosure, 18,000 feet of earth walls, built 2,000 years ago by people that we call the Hopewell cultural people. They would have used nothing more than a shoulder bones of deer and elk, split up antler, clamshell hose, digging sticks, placing the soil in the baskets that we've demonstrated. We've built no more than about 35 to 40 pounds of soil. Why do we know that? Well, we've taken a trench through the earth wall right at State Route 350 and found an actual basket loading of soil. So to figure out volume, you take a tape measure, measure the length of the sand, the depth of the sand. Give those measurements to somebody who got better than straight C's in high school general math, knows me, yeah, and it gives you volume. There's an estimated 553,000 cubic yards of soil in this site. Now, what's that mean to you guys? Estimated 553,000 cubic yards of soil in this site. Now, what's that mean to you guys? Absolutely nothing. It's strategic. Well, then again, we are not a fort. We are a prehistoric church. The 553,000 cubic yards of soil, if we were to tear apart all the earth walls, all 18,000 feet, and put them into dump trucks, each dump truck holding between 15 and 20 tons of soil, and park it at the Jeremiah Mile Bridge on Interstate 71, which is about a mile and a half away from here. Start parking the dump trucks end for end. You will end up 15 miles from downtown Cleveland, 200 miles away. 15 miles from downtown Cleveland, 200 miles away.
So what he's trying to tell us, lights please, what he's trying to tell us is that if you deconstructed the mounds and you put them in dump trucks, you would have 200 miles of dump trucks end to end. Get that? 200 miles of dump trucks end to end. Is anybody buying that in this room? If there is, please come over and see the pastor afterwards. We will pray for you. This is what is taught to our children. This is what is sacrosanct. This man's not stupid. And he drank the Kool-Aid. He honestly believed clamshells and digging sticks and antlers and primitive tools and created this, 553,000 tons of earth, which is like a gazillion buckets. And he's trying to tell us that's how it was done. And we're saying, no, it's not. And we push back against this absolute nonsense. This is like, is the earth flat? And please don't come up to me and try to convince me of that, okay? Please. So mainstream archaeology insists the mounds were created with primitive tools. This is what one looks like. So what did we do? What did our team do? We hired a flint knapper, someone that creates museum pieces, replicas, museum pieces for, replicas for the museums. That's what this guy does. So we hired a flint knapper, and he created a flint hoe for us. Then we procured a fit laborer and had this gentleman go out into a field near Poverty Point and dig with the hoe. And we timed him to see how long it would take. And he scoops up the dirt with his hands and he puts it in a bucket. He takes the bucket and he waddles over like maybe 100 yards away to where the site would have been, and he dumps it. And we show all that in the film. And when I show this, people just start cracking up, so it's okay to laugh. You can turn the lights off.
We were curious to see how an ancient flint hoe would actually work on the soil around Poverty Point. We hired a flint maker to create a replica of the hoe, and after procuring a fit laborer, headed out into the field to see how much dirt could be dug, collected and hauled to the mound site.
My name is Rick Woodward. I'm an archaeologist, and I'm working with Spiral of Light here near Poverty Point. We are doing some time binding tests, some experiments, how much time it takes to move a certain amount of soil. We wanted to do that to see how the mounds were built and the time factor that it would take. I wanted to describe this soil a little bit so you can get a good idea of the instrument that they use. As you can see, it's beveled on each side with what we call bifacing. They biface this piece of plant. Then it was fitted into this handle, so it was pinched. And you can't see the pitch, but inside of these rackets, there's a dark resin pitch that would have acted as a glue to hold this in. Then it would have been wrapped in rawhide. The rawhide would have been wet so that when it shrank, it would have held this navaculi head in this handle. And they would have been able to use it. It's very tough, it's a very rugged instrument. And I wanted to thank Mr. Emerson, who actually did this exact replica. So this is the tool that they were using. This tool has been used for over 6,000 years. Then the next thing we're going to do is take that soil that we've dug out of the hole, and we're going to put it into a vessel. And we're going to time that operation to see how much time it takes to do that. Once we get that done, we're going to take that bucket and we're going to walk a specific measured distance that would have been very close to the distance that they would have had to walk to carry this soil to the spot where the mound was going to be built. Then the soil would have been done.
This is bucket number 2. 28 million. Okay, 28 million single buckets. Now, we don't know how it was compacted.
And we timed that operation.
Each truck and trailer holds 40 tons of soil. 71 one-man bucket trips to create 1 ton of soil. 390,000 tons of earth to create Poverty Point. 9,750 double tractor trailer loads of dirt to move 390,000 tons. Basically 28 million one-man bucket to create Poverty Point. That's Miamisburg. There are over 10,000 mounds in Ohio alone. 10,000 mounds in Ohio alone. 10,000 mounds in Ohio alone. That's an Adena mound. I'm gonna take you back there just for a second, because I want to show you the sides here. And I'm gonna stop it right there. Look at the sides of the mound there. That's Fritz on top of the mound. Look at the sides and how steep they are. And, you know, just walking up that. So they did find skeletons in here, but we don't know what happened to them. So to give you an idea, and how is it compacted, and why hasn't it eroded? And this is in the Newark Museum, the Great Circle Mound, showing the 18-and-a-half-year lunar cycle. You'll also notice something here, it's a blow-up. This is the only artifact that they found. It's a shaman with a human skull on a rope or a leather thong around his head. The skull is right here. So that's very telling. Giants of North America, this is my work. And I give you the quick backstory on this. The fire wiped all of our books out. It wiped out all of our inventory. So On the Trail of the Nephilim, Volume 1 and 2 are no longer in print, haha. But Friday they're going to be delivered. And what we did is we combined On the Trail 1 and On the Trail 2, plus the DNA evidence. It's like 700 pages. It's 8.5 by 11, it's full color. So we're excited about that. And this information is in those books if you're interested in finding more about it. I was told from a friend of mine that they had just discovered on Catalina Island a lost chest. And in that chest was the lost papers of Ralph Glidden, who was a primitive archaeologist. Whoa, primitive archaeologist, that's him right there, who conducted archaeological digs all through the Catalina Islands area and the Channel Islands, which go from Santa Barbara down to San Diego. That's the Channel Islands. Ralph, this is about 1919, 1921. Ralph is employed by the Hay Museum, and the hay was later gobbled up by the Smithsonian. So he's out there and he's doing all these primitive digs. He's got a bad rap. Everybody calls him a little more than a grave robber, yada, yada, yada. So I get wind of this thing, and what I'm told is there are pictures from 1919, which no one's ever seen them. 1919, there's his journals, newspaper clippings. So I call the museum and go, what does it take to get me out of here? Well, you can't see him. And this goes back and forth for 6 months. Finally, my friend Tom Watson goes, they're building a new museum, offer a donation. So I offered a $1,000 donation to the new museum. The email was basically, come right in, Mr. Marzulli. And so I went over there, and this is unlike the 42 boxes of papers and stuff where 5 people sorted through it for 2 days and found nothing. I found stuff within the first hour. I found the picture you're looking at within the first hour that I was there, which is unheard of. Normally it's not like that. Normally you dig and you dig and you dig and you get a little crumb. This was huge. And they had gone through it, but people didn't know what they were looking at. They weren't looking for giants. They weren't looking for 6-fingered giants. They weren't looking for elongated skulls. I was. That was my filter. So I see this and I go, oh my gosh, that's something that's really big. And I call the curator, who got fired shortly after that. After I left, literally within months he was fired. And I said, does that look normal to you? And he goes, no, it doesn't. So what we did is we hired, not hired, but I put a word out on the blog. We had 3 people. We took the photograph, which was a 5x7 black and white. So I'm sitting with my camera over a table. There's white paper on it, and I have the black and white photograph on the white paper. I'm photographing that photograph, and I sent them to 3 people who are experts in the field. And they're looking at this thing based on Ralph Gooden's height, which we know is 5'8". That's a matter of historical record. We know Gooden's height is 5'8". So we take him out and we straighten him up. Then we take the skeleton out and we straighten him up. The problem is, right here you can see in the picture, oh, did you go to the second one? There it is. Right here, where the tibias come down, we're not sure of the ankle and feet. So you can see that he kind of put them in there, but we're really not sure. So basically we can see that there's a disparity between them. And what we figured that the height was just over 8'9". So we could have said it's a 9-footer. Instead we said it's an 8.5-footer. Okay, I'm a 6-foot male. When you go up 2 feet, you go out, you've got a giant on your hand. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if it's 9 feet, which is what it really is, it's just, forget it. I don't have a chance against this thing. And when we did this, which was incredible, the museum immediately redacted the pictures. And I'll show you that in a second. How many fingers do you see here? And I got to do something here. What's the deal with this? Why are you doing this? Hold on. Yeah, okay. That's dead center. My fault. So, how many fingers? See the way it's too high? But I'm not going to mess with it now. How many fingers do you see here? Where's the thumb? Where's the thumb? Let's count them together. There's the little finger because it's his right hand, isn't it? So there's the little finger. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That can't possibly be the thumb. I'm sorry, it's his left hand. No, it's his right hand. What am I saying? Figure it out. It's backwards. I'm confused. It's his right hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the thumb is behind here. Here's the thumb on this hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the thumb more than likely has fallen off. It's a 6-fingered skeleton. I've shown this to doctors, and they say, yeah, it looks like a 6-fingered skeleton. It's this. Why is that important? Because in the biblical prophetic narrative, what does it talk about? That the giants some of them had 6 fingers and 6 toes. There's a disease called polydactylism. If you have 6 fingers and 6 toes, that doesn't mean you're a Nephilim. But remember, a Nephilim is the hybrid being of the fallen angels procreating with the women of earth, creating a hybrid known as the Nephilim. So when this happens, you get all these genetic anomalies. One of the genetic anomalies apparently was 6 digits. And the Bible tells us this. So right off the bat, I find a 9-footer, essentially, and 6 fingers. So what's wrong with this picture? What's wrong with this picture? We're back in the museum 6 months later after I published the book. That's my book that I published a photograph. That's Ralph Glidden. Notice how they've blown the picture up. But what did they leave out of the picture? Okay, why would they do this? This is a museum.
It doesn't fit their narrative.
Bada bing, it doesn't fit their narrative. And so they redact. Isn't that cheating? Isn't that lying? Isn't that being deliberately deceitful? You see what we're up against? These people will do anything to hold on and bolster their absurd paradigm. Anything. They'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll steal, they'll kill. They will kill. I've been threatened. They'll do anything to prevent this information from coming out. There's the original picture. That's what it looks like. This is what they show. So we filmed that, and that went viral, especially on Jim Vieira's show, In Search of the Lost Giants. The whole thing went viral, which is good. So in the new museum, to their credit, they've taken this picture and they've blown it up really big. I mean, it's like this big. It's huge. That there's nothing about the giants. You would think that they would be saying, come see the Catalina giant. And they'd have a stream of people around the block coming to see that photograph. You would think that they would have interviewed me and, where are your sources? Can we talk to the people that did this yet? Do their own work, check the thing. Nope! Not a word, not a peep. Nope, can't have that. But at least they show it. Because if they don't show it, they lose face. And they hope it just all goes away. Can you go get me one of the skulls? Thank you. So this is the work of Rick Woodward. Unlike a certain researcher by the name of Brian Forrester, I said his name, who never gives us credit. Thanks, honey. Let's give her a hand, folks. Can I have a volunteer from the audience, please? We're going to switch skulls. I'm just joking. So Rick Woodward is an anthropologist. You saw him. He's also an archaeologist. And so what Rick did was we sent him all the pictures and the skulls that we have. Here's a normal skull here. Notice the size of the foramen magnum and the shape of the foramen magnum. Notice its placement to the rear plate, which is called the occipital plate, in the back of the skull. Notice the placement. These are the Paracas skulls here, where the foramen magnum is a different shape, and it's pushed back basically to as far back as you possibly can. This is called, this is the red-headed one. This came from Paracas. And I want to show you where the foramen magnum is here. There it is right there. Here's the real plate. Here's the occipital plate. If it's any further back, it's outside the skull. If it's any further back, that's why we bring these, so you can handle them. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. Is it a giant? No, it's not. But here's the deal. We don't think this is cranial deformation. And the reason for this is Dr. Michael Alday, who's an MD, Dr. Malcolm Warm, who's a chiropractor, Rick Woodward is an anthropologist. We believe, and we've written this in the paper, and episode 4 of On the Trail of a Nephilim is on the DNA and these elongated skulls. They're coming to shoot at our house on Tuesday. 4 people, myself, Mondo Gonzalez, our archaeologist, Rick Woodward, our archaeologist, anthropologist, and then Dr. Michael Alday, Dr. Malcolm Warm, and Rick Woodward will Skype in. So the whole team, that was the team that did this, will be there. And we're doing this to push back because other people are trying to take the work, take our DNA work, and make it sound like it's their own when it's not. It was our team that did this. So here's the foramen magnum, and this is Rick Woodward's work. And this particular individual, Forrester, never gives Rick Woodward the time of day. It's Rick Woodward's work. In fact, Forrester took 4 chapters out of our book and plagiarized them verbatim and put them in his book, and we had to hire our lawyer to write a cease and desist letter to Forrester, and he took it down. Then he just rewrote it and made it sound like it's his own. This is so disingenuous and so unfair. So we're beginning to push back, and we'll go public with it. So you're finding about all this. And this is just dreadful. Why is this done? So we think, all of us on the team, believe this is genetic. It's not the result of cranial deformation. Why? Because you can wrap the skull, I get that, okay? You can put a board here and flatten the head. But you can't move the position of the foramen magnum back. and you can't change its size. You'd kill the kid. And we've had doctors and nurses and everybody else come up and look at these molds and basically sign up for that. They say exactly the same thing. So if it's genetic, which is what we think it is, then what are we looking at here? If it is genetic, and we know, and I'll just get into that in a second, that the mitochondrial DNA, oh I gotta show you this, the mitochondrial DNA from the mother's side of the equation, in many of the skulls, show a Middle Eastern or European haplogroup. In other words, there's two parts of the equation. There's the mother's side of the DNA, and the maternal, and the paternal side, the nuclear DNA from the father. We've never been able to get nuclear DNA. So we don't know what that side of the equation is. But the maternal side should show Native American, which is B, coming from Asia. That's what it should show. Instead, it shows U2E1, or H, which is European/Middle Eastern, or T2B, which is Nephilim Central, Syria, for crying out loud. Something isn't adding up here. And of course, when we published it, everybody said, oh, it's contamination. And I said, go down and get your own samples and prove us wrong. There's no contamination here. We were dressed from head to toe in lab suits. We took every precaution. We were told how to do it. We did it. Mondo Gonzalez, our archaeologist, he took the samples. I assisted. Everything was tagged and bagged immediately and put in little vials with seals on them. And I went down and collected all this stuff. 2 months later, another trip back down, collected the stuff, and I had letters of transit from the Peruvian government, and we handed the stuff off to the labs, and the results came in. We had a press conference and showed the results. This is the enigmatic Chongos skull. Chongos is an necropolis in Peru, and we were one of the first teams that were able to go in and photograph it, take it out of the case, and turn it over, because I wanted to see the position of the foramen magnum. Because no one's looking at this. Rick Woodward was the guy that put it on the map. Rick Woodward was the anthropologist who put it on the map and wrote a paper, and that will be in the book. Check this out and watch my reaction to it. Lights? Oh my God, it's right in the back. There it is. It's right in the back. If that thing is any further back, it's outside the skull. Look at it right there. You see how far back it is? It's even further back than this thing is. And the skull is actually larger than this one. Oh my God, it's right in the back. Look at that. It's right in the back. What's going to say? It's like right on the occipital plate. So here we are. You can see it like right there, and then here's the occipital plate. I mean, if it's like a quarter inch, it's outside the skull, it won't work. And so what we think, you can put the lights on, what we think is this skull, in order to balance this skull, because, see, our foramen magnum, like you saw, is sort of in the middle of the skull, so our neck works like this. I mean, it's balanced, right? Not with these guys. So what we posit, this is total conjecture, we've never been able to get our hands on a full mummy yet. We're still working on it. Things move very slow in Peru. They don't care. They don't care. It's amazing. They don't do their own DNA, we do their DNA for them. And then they don't like the results, so they throw us out. That's how the game is played. So we believe that these skulls may have had longer necks. Not many different vertebrae. A giraffe has the same amount of neck vertebrae as we do. It's just that the spacing is different and the vertebrae is different. So we think these might have been longer necks. What's interesting is the haplogroup for this guy, and I'll show you that in a second, is H2A. This skull right here is this guy on the end, right there, the middle. He's the middle skull. That's what this is. It's the middle skull. So it comes from H2A, which is European. And we think if the necks were longer, that would balance the skull with a much longer neck. So the Nephilim tribes have names. The Zanzamim, the Emams, the Rephaim, the Anakim. Guess what Anakim translate as? Long necks. Long necks. Is this an Anakim? I don't know. That's why we're on the trail. That's why we're relentless. It's a relentless pursuit of the truth. We want the truth. We want to know. Why do we do it? Because it proves the veracity of the biblical prophetic narrative. It also proves the veracity of a Native American oral tradition. So here we have a DNA analysis from another skull, mitochondrial DNA haplogroup T2b, which comes from Syria or Turkey. Haplogroup U2E1. This was called the baby skull. We got to unwrap at 2000. You could turn the lights off so they can see it on the big screen. We got to unwrap this baby skull here. That should have come up. Why isn't it coming up? Let me go back up.
It's on the screen.
That's so weird. It's not coming up. There it is. Okay. If you look, actually, this is a better shot than this one is. But if you look at one of the monitors, you can see the strawberry blonde hair. We got to unwrap a 2,000-year-old mummy skull at Senior Wands Museum. And when we got to this point and we saw the strawberry blonde hair, we all totally freaked. We took hair samples out of that. We tested this in 2 different labs, 3 different times, and we discovered all 3 tests came back the same. U2E1, which is basically Eastern European. U2E1. Why is this important? Because, you can turn the lights on, because the prevailing paradigm is this, that thousands of years ago, people came across the Bering Strait when it was a land bridge and populated the Americas. And if that's so, it's haplogroup B, not H, not T2B, it's haplogroup B. Haplogroups for us were all European and Middle Eastern. This rewrites history. You would think that the academics would look at our research, which is, look, we took it to a DNA lab. We have the reports from the DNA lab. It's published in the back of On the Trail of the Nephilim 1 and 2 with the DNA, the new book coming out. We'll get them on Friday. You can read the reports for yourself. We're not making this stuff up. What was that? Sorry? And the bottom line is, you would think that every archaeologist and anthropologist could make a beeline down there. What are we looking at? Who were these people? And it rewrites history, because the Darwinian paradigm insists that everybody came over at the end of the last ice age. Guess what, folks? They didn't. They didn't. And we get 56 samples, and out of the 56 samples, 28 of them sequenced. And out of the 28 that sequenced, a majority of them showed Middle Eastern, European origins. It rewrites history. Why is that important? Because it completely shows that the idea of isolationism, which is sacrosanct in the academic and scientific community and archaeological community, isolationist meaning that no one goes anywhere. Cultures just stay in one place for hundreds of years, and every now and then maybe an adventurous person might walk a mile down the road. Oh, not so fast, citizen, get back in your own little area. Nonsense! People get canoes, they build ships, they build boats. What's over that mountain? I don't know. You want to go see? Sure, I got nothing else to do, let's go. Maybe the bears are bigger over there. Let's go. Oh, look, there's a village. Oh, they don't speak our language. Oh, wow, they got really cool stuff to trade. That's what people do. That's called diffusionism. Of course, diffusionists are looked at as absolute ignoramuses, because the prevailing paradigm in the academic and scientific community, archaeological anthropology, is isolationism. I am an ardent diffusionist. People want to see what's over the hill, what's on the other side of the river. Where does this river go? What's an ocean? Oh my gosh, how far can I sail on this thing? Where am I? And people traveled. Guess what? If they traveled from the Middle East, then our hypothesis has always been this, we believe, and this is why it's so important. This is the payoff. When Joshua and Caleb, 3,500 years ago, pressed the conquest of Canaan, the Nephilim tribes were there. They populated the entire area. And the God of the Bible, the loving God of the Bible, gives a mandate, which many of us, when we get there, not knowing about Genesis 3:15 and Genesis 6, and the Nephilim go, whoa, God of the Old Testament, man, whoa. Where's Jesus when I need him? This Old Testament God, I can't buy it. This stuff is really weird. I threw my Bible against the wall when I hit that 39 years ago. I went, what? What? Tossed the Bible. Didn't pick it up for 2 or 3 days. All right, I'll read it. And I always had trouble with it until I read Dr. I.D.E. Thomas's book, The Omega Conspiracy, which changed my life and set me on the path that I'm on now. God of the Bible says to Joshua and Caleb, go in and wipe out every man, woman, and child, kill all the animals and burn everything. That is genocidal, it's maniacal, it's capricious, it's murderous, It's favoring one tribe over another tribe. It's everything in the modern world that repels us. In fact, the Darwinists, like Richard Dawkins, uses that scripture to show us how evil Christians really are, because we believe in this. How can you be a good Christian how do you reconcile the God of the Old Testament? Very easily. Because the people that are there, it's a move, counter move, cosmic chess match. They are there. The entities that are in the Promised Land are Nephilim tribes. The Anakim are there. The Rephaim are there. The Zanzumim are there. The Emims, all different names to connote, in my opinion, different genetic characteristics. They are there. They're never supposed to be there. But the Satan, the dragon, knows what the plan is. Ever wonder why it is, and this is all free, by the way, extra. Ever, calm down already, there's that heart medication again. I can't help it. My hair's on fire. But the bottom line is this, ever wonder why? Ever wonder why Jesus tells Abraham, yeah, you're going to be a great nation, but you're going to go down and be in bondage for 400 years. Until the sin of the Amorites comes into its fullness. What? What is he talking about? When Abraham gets tapped out, now Satan knows where the seed's going to come from. Until that moment, he doesn't know. He knows someone is coming, but he's not sure where it is. When Moses and Aaron show up in Egypt, there's a full-blown occult paradigm in operation. Everybody's on board with it. Everybody's on board with it. So much so that when they throw the staff down, right, and it becomes a serpent, Pharaoh basically laughs, and his magicians do the same thing. No one's running out of the room going, oh my God, it turned into a serpent, did you see that? They've all seen it before. That's not taught, and we need to understand that there's a full-blown occult paradigm, which, by the way, is global, which is to my point, that this whole thing that we're looking at is the dragon's handiwork. It's a global network created by Satan the dragon to enslave human beings, which is what happened. And there's always human sacrifice that happens. So, Abraham goes down there, becomes a great nation, 400 years. Ever wonder why Pharaoh gets up on a Monday morning and goes, I think I'm going to kill the firstborn of the Israelites. That's a good idea. Make it so. Ever wonder why he does that? Move, counter move, move, counter move. Because if the dragon knows, now he knows that the Abrahamic line, which the Messiah is going to come from, he's trying to kill them all. Ever wonder why those tribes are in the Promised Land? Because when Abraham sacrifices Isaac, it's on Mount Moriah. And he gets a hint. Move, counter move, move. So he puts all his forces into one area. And then the mandate from a loving, holy God is wipe them all out. Because they're not human. They are soulless. They are Nephilim. They are hybrid beings without souls that are in a fixed state, that are cannibalistic, they're bloodthirsty, they are crazy, crazy entities. Crazy entities. They're in a fixed state. That's why the mandate comes down to wipe them all out. And now you've just reconciled the most disturbing part of the Old Testament, because it is. It's very disturbing. But once you know that, you can argue with the Darwinist who comes up, well, what about this? I'll tell you what. You got an hour? You can hoist him on his own petard. So the bottom line is, when Joshua and Caleb pushed the conquest of Canaan, some of the Nephilim tribes flee. They build boats, they travel out the Straits of Gibraltar, and the trade winds will take them right to the island of Barbados. How do I know this? Thor Heyerdahl proved it in the 60s. He built a boat, called it Ra. It was out of papyrus, just like the Egyptians would have used, just like was all over the Mediterranean 3,500 years ago. He built a papyrus boat. He sails out the Strait of Gibraltar, no compass, has a sail, no map, no compass, and just sits there. And the wind pushes him, and he lands on the island of Barbados. That is the new world. And Heyerdahl proved the concept of diffusionism, that it could be done. It could be done, and it was done. They came over here, they set up shop here, and the Lord allows it, just like Sodom and Gomorrah. He allows it for a certain period of time, and then, boom, that's it. We're not doing this anymore. That's what I think's happening. So let's move on. Is there a bias in academia? This man came on the record in the first, I'm going to let you go, I'm going to wrap it up here real quick now. He's a professor, not a professor, but he's a microscopist. University of California, Los Angeles rather, sorry. And his name is Mr. Armitage. Scientist claims California University fired him over creationist belief. What happened is, right here is a Trisopterus horn, right there. That's the Trisopterus horn. So he's up at Hell Creek one summer. He's got a team of people together. They're doing a dig. The last day that they're there, they find this huge fossil. It's a Trisopterus fossil. He's a microscopist. He's got, these incredible scanning electron microscopes. He takes the Trisopterus horn back to his lab. He opens it up. He takes a sample. He finds soft tissue in a 40-million-year-old Trisopterus horn. You can't find that there. Something's wrong with this picture, right? Something's really wrong with this picture. He publishes his findings in a secular paper. He's fast-tracked. Usually it takes 6 months or 8 months to a year. He's fast-tracked. They want this. He's not talking in the paper about, I'm a born-again Christian, and I believe that the earth is blah, 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 blah. He's just telling people what he discovered. He's fired for that. He's fired for that. So he takes it to court, and he wins. And the idea is, in Ben Stein's movie on this, No Intelligence Allowed, he's fired for publishing an article, Science, what he discovered under a scanning electron microscope. He's fired for this. This is where we are in this country, where if you stand up and you say something that's against the tide, that's against the prevailing paradigm, welcome to my world, you're called every name in the book. If I was an archaeologist teaching at a university, that'd be a joke. I'd be fired immediately for my beliefs. Immediately. Unless it was a Christian university. Yeah, good luck with that. That's what we're up against, folks. That's what's happening here. And it's all because Charlie Darwin and his ridiculous theory. This is taken down in Peru. And we see this endlessly repeated. Repeat a lie often enough and people will believe it. What we see is an ignorant little chimpanzee here who, for whatever reason, just decides to get up on a Monday morning and start running. Just show me one species on this planet. Anything. Just show me something that's becoming something else. Just anything. Anything at all. Just show me one. Just one. Surely out of the thousands and thousands of species that we have, we see somebody growing a flipper or growing some feathers. We'd be seeing something evolving. We don't see that. We see microevolution. Beaks become a little harder. People get a little taller. Skin changes color. Microevolution. But we don't see porpoises becoming elephants and elephants becoming hummingbirds. When we have two hummingbirds that mate, we don't get two hummingbirds mating, we don't get penguins. It doesn't work that way. When two elephants mate, we don't get kangaroos. It doesn't work that way. Why? Because everything reproduces according to its kind. Why? Because of the deoxyribonucleic acid, the double helix of life, the spiral of life, the DNA molecular structure, which is so complex, when the discoverers of it, Watson and Crick, looked at it, they were blown away. And they realized, and especially Crick was a vexed man, because he realized, and I quote, no matter how many billions of years of primordial slide, this thing just didn't happen by itself. Because it's a complex coding. It's a complex coding. And we're there. And there's not, you've ever thought about this? And I'll get into this tomorrow night. Nobody knows what this is or where we are. How many people can't come tomorrow night? Just raise your hand. Cannot come. Just one? That's pretty good. But I'll give you a teaser for tomorrow night. No one knows what this is or where we are in it. Nobody has a clue. Nobody. Not one person that's ever lived except for Jesus knows what this is and where we are. You have no idea where your consciousness is stored. Who are you? And when you go to sleep, why do you need to go to sleep? And when you go to sleep, where do you go? And when you wake up in the morning, how do you come back? And how if I say, who'd you take to the high school senior prom? Most of you went. For those of you who didn't, I'm sorry. Not really. How come you know exactly who it was? Why does that person flash in your mind? You're not going, okay, high school prom, class of 72, we need the picture, where is it? Come on, guys, I don't have all day here. Doesn't work that way. How come it works? Where is it? How come that works? Where is memory stored? Who are you? Who am I? What are we? Where are we? On this little blue spinning planet, somewhere in God's universe, no one knows. Nobody has a clue as to what this is and where we are in it. Nobody. He does. Father God does, which is why he rolls up the universe like a scroll. because that's what he's going to do, and create a new universe. Oh, that can't possibly happen, LA. I don't believe that. So you Christians are all like pie in the sky nonsense, rolling up the universe like a scroll. Ha ha, balderdash. What if the universe is holographic? What if the universe is holographic? That begins to explain everything. And I think it is holographic. That's why angels can come in and come out. They can manipulate space, time, matter, and energy in ways that we don't understand. So why is it that we see this ridiculous thing from chimps running, decide to get up one morning and show me one chimpanzee in any zoo who's deciding to do this? I say, I'm tired of eating bananas. I'd like a nice steak tonight, thank you. Yes, please. And by the way, I need a haircut. I mean, we don't see that. It happens over and over and over again. It just goes on, and everything reproduces according to its kind. Why? Because that's the way that God set the thing up. Giant bones and mounds. Strange skeletons found. Look at this. This is a bas-relief. Look at this guy. Big Amorite guy. Look at these little guys here. Whoa! What's that about? Look at this. Petroglyphs in New Mexico. What's this? Little guy? Big guy. When Pastor Curtis showed me that, he was freaked out. Because he knew about the legends, but he'd never seen a petroglyph. This petroglyph's about 3 miles from his church. And there it is. Right on the reservation. Little guy, big guy. Watch this. 28-pound axe head. 28-pound axe head.
And this is, what's great about this, I wrote about this in On the Trail of the Nephilim Volume 1. And here we are in Salado, Texas, and we've got a replica of it. That's just incredible. And how heavy was that? 26 pounds for him. And no,
28-pound axe head. Nephilim lance. This was a bronze artifact found in Michigan. There's no provenance for it. But what was interesting, when we actually tested it, and this gets into the whole conspiracy thing, we took it to one lab. Oh, we'll be able to tell you exactly where the copper was mined, and yada, yada, yada. We come back 2 months later, and there's a PR person with the tech. And they won't let us film. We can't talk directly to her. We have to go through the PR person, and the PR person they converse, and then she can give an answer. It was like, oh boy. So we found a Christian. In fact, the guy's name is Christian. And he did the isotopic analysis. What he discovered was England and Spain and Greece and sometimes Turkey. So that's where we are. And I've got the second presentation. See all this? See all this we have to go through? LA, you've already spoken for almost 2 hours, LA. You have failed us miserably with all your ridiculous stories and rabbit trails. And here we are. It's 9 o'clock, and you have another hour at least. And we can't stay up because we have to go to work, LA. You have failed us miserably in this. We are very disappointed with you. My wife's over there like, okay, I really blew it. I got way too carried away. I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'll how many people can come in the morning, or 2 o'clock rather? Okay, most of you. I will pick this up at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? Or 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. For those of you who are fortunate enough to come at 2 in the morning, we'll pick this up tomorrow at 2, and then we'll go on to the next one. Okay? Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.